Hello everyone! This is Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I'm here today with a really fun dyeing project. Today we are going to do some low immersion dyeing of some Knit Picks Wool of the Andings Roving using our Jacquard Acid dyes. And today's video is sponsored by Marilyn New. Thank you so much for your support. I currently have 6 cups of tap water in my dye pot, and I am going to add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar. And this will be the acid source for our dye today. I have not yet pre-soaked our roving. I am planning to pre-soak it directly in the pot before we start heating things up. I folded my roving into quarters, so I folded it in half and in half again. And now I'm planning to arrange it in this pot in somewhat of a spiral, with our ends on the outside and some folds in the center. So 6 cups of water is plenty to fully submerge the fiber. And I know that when I add the acid dyes to this fiber, that's going to increase our volume of water a bit. But I am going to let this soak in our acidic solution for at least 30 minutes, and I will start prepping our acid dyes so that way we can add them to the fiber. Today with our roving, we are going to use Jacquard's sky blue, pink, violet, yellow, and silver gray. And I'm planning to mix these colors a little bit as well to get some mixtures. So right here in each of these 2 cups, I have 30 mils of the 1% sky blue stock solution. And now I can show what I told you last time, in that with this sky yellow, it really crashes out of solution. I found that when it's diluted, it goes back in a bit, but to approximate that, I am going to mix it and then take with my clean syringe a little bit out to make a teal. So I want just about 5 milliliters of this yellow. This green might still be more on the yellow side than what I really want, but we won't know until we try mixing it. Okay, so that isn't really that teal. The green is actually pretty light, but it's like a grass green type color. I'm going to add some violet to, and you can see that the violet is a lot more potent than the green, to this container. I don't want to contaminate my stock solutions. Alright, and I think that I want to make 2 versions of the purple. One I want to be a little more blue. So I'm going to add to here 10 milliliters of blue. I'll wash out my syringe. Okay, and about 25 milliliters of the violet. I'm finding the sky blue to actually be relatively pale. Alright, and let's see how much of this violet we have left in here. About 15 milliliters. Okay, I'm fine with that. 15 milliliters of violet, and let's add some of the Jacquard pink as well. I haven't used this pink yet, but it seems like a very nice berry rose color right away. Alright, cleaning off the syringe. And we're going to do 15 milliliters of that pink color. Okay, actually having a tiny bit of pink left over. Let's see, I think that this is a lot more, actually that is still very, a very blue purple, but if you compare it to the original violet, you could see that that gave the purple a little bit of an oomph. Whereas our bluer one, ooh, that's nice. Kind of looks a little more like the original. Yeah, the blue is pretty pale compared to some of these other colors. Maybe because it's sky blue, that's a paler blue, I might want to pick a more potent shade in the future, because I find that the yellow seems to overpower it a bit. So I've got some pink, I've got some blue, I've got two different purples, I've got a green, and lastly, I want some of the silver gray. Sort of making this up a little bit as I go along, but I think that it'll be really cool when we add. I think it'll be really cool when we add it to the roving. So I was inclined to just mix colors together somewhat willy-nilly, but I decided to measure, and okay, this is 30 mils of the gray. I am measuring out these colors mainly so that way we will get a sense of, just in case there's a shade that you might want to replicate or something. Let's see. Okay, so that was 30 gray and 10 blue, which I don't think will really shift things too much, but I am curious. Yeah, maybe not very much at all. That still reads, maybe there's a hint of blue in that gray, but I think that for our color palette, we've got some really fun colors going on. So I feel like I might end up wanting more dye, but for starters, I think we might be in a reasonable place. All right, let's go ahead and do one more color to try to get more of a teal. Yeah, if you have a good base blue, I'd love to hear what it is. I'd like something that isn't as pale as the sky blue. But that is why, some of the reason why we're doing all this, because this is just a learning experience. All right, let's take 30 milliliters of this blue and then add maybe about 10 of this green that we mixed, and see now if I've got something that's more in the teal. Yay! I have a teal. Hooray! Okay, I'm really happy with this color palette, and there'll be some pops of pink in there as well. But let's start heating up our dye bath, and now that we've mixed some colors, we will get ready to add them to our roving. Today, instead of pouring the dye directly in the pot, I am going to use this turkey baster that I got at the dollar store with a needle. This is the same syringe I was using to measure before, but I think that this can allow me to insert the dye more in between sections of roving versus just on top of the roving. All right, maybe I'm gonna stop using this needle in a minute because it's a little bit annoying. But let's inject some gray into some sections. Yeah, I think that this needle has some holes up the length, which means that pulling up the dye is a bit of a pain. So maybe I will go back and pour instead. Or at least, I mean, it's a turkey baster, so it can probably handle some heat. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and remove the needle and just kind of go for it. So this is the blue gray that I mixed. And I'm adding it to a few different sections. But what's kind of cool is that the color is looking rather pale over there. So, but there is very, very little liquid in this pot. So dyes will probably stay around where we've put them. But I am curious what our less, this is just our straight dye stock solution, so about 10 milliliters of the gray. And, well, it's hard to see because the colors have clearly soaked into the yarn a bit, how much of a difference that blue has made. All right, let's go for a pop of color and add some pink directly into our pot. Okay, so of just the straight pink, I think I have 10 mils. Let's actually do a line of pink. So you can see how much further that appears to have gone, but I added that on the surface of the fiber versus injecting it. So I'm curious how much these colors will spread and mix as we go through. And here is some more of this pink purple. This was the violet and pink that we mixed together. And by injecting it, kind of forcing it into an area. It does look like the colors are spreading out a bit, which is kind of nice. Hopefully wicking through our yarn. I might end up needing to use some more dye. So I haven't been keeping too close track, but I probably have around 200 milliliters of dye. Interesting. Funny. Kind of digging these colors though. Alright. Here's some plain blue over on an edge. Interesting. I'm now getting curious about how much. Okay, there's still a lot of dye. Funny, that pink seems to have struck, but I still see purple. Oh, I can see the gray. I wonder how much these colors and a bunch of the blue. I wonder how much of the colors are along the bottom side, because that's where more of the volume is being pushed versus the top. Bringing this kind of like the opposite of what we see with some of our other colors that we do. All right, now we've got some green. Or is this, oh funny, I thought that this was going to be more of a teal, but we've really got kind of a deep green here. Sort of spreading out. Interesting. What's funny is that I feel like I'm definitely going to need to add more dye. Maybe I should be paying more attention to the recommendations on weight of goods. But this is sort of making me think of a garden right now. You know, with these greens and these other grays. It's kind of a blue-gray and the bit of pink. Maybe down here. All right. So we've added these colors. We might need to add some more. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's kind of cool right now. So let's give it 5 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and cover it so that way we don't lose too much volume. So let's give it 5 minutes and see if the colors really spread out at all before we decide if we need to get some more dye. 5 minutes have passed, and let's take a look at our roving. Whoa! Okay, our colors are definitely spreading out. I'm not sure why I was so worried, but our pink, some of the yellows have crossed over, and so we almost have some orange in there. I'm gonna grab my, of course I'm not wearing gloves anymore, my handy fish turner. Oh, there's a lot of dye. Okay, cool. But not so much over there. Yeah, some of the yellows, because they crashed, is there? Oh, there's still some purples in there. Kind of, I know I'm disrupting the spread by doing this. Interesting. I think we might end up with some, ooh, that looks dark. We might end up with some dark and medium tones in here, which I think should be really, really nice. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give this 10 minutes before I mess around with it further. But I kind of like the pink stripe because we can see how these colors are mixing over it. And so that's really, really cool. 10 minutes have passed, and let's take a look. Ooh. Okay, my heat is already on low, but it looks like we're bubbling a little bit. This is actually looking really, really nice. Oh, some heat trapped under there. I don't want to agitate it too much, but ooh, look at that. We've definitely got some dark colors on the bottom. That's fun, I think, because that's where we inserted, oh yeah, look at that bright blue. I was worried that it's all gonna be pastel, but I think that's because the way I inserted the dyes, rather than having all the color on the top, we were getting the color on the bottom. So I don't think I'm gonna add any more dye, and it looks like a lot of the color has exhausted. Let's use, yeah, I mean, we're looking rather clear everywhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the heat and let this cool down in the pot. But I am just so curious. I'm really, really excited to see what this looks like. And it's really hard to not poke it around too much. But I'm gonna try to be patient. We're gonna let the roving cool in the pot, and then we'll remove it to wash it. Our pot has cooled completely, and now we are ready to wash our roving. I have filled my basin with some cool tap water, and we are ready to start washing our roving. I'm lifting it up in the pot and squeezing out some of the wash water, and wow! Look at those bright colors on the bottom. That is pretty remarkable. And I'm curious, but it looks like just about all the color is in the roving. I'm really curious what this is going to look like as I separate it. But oh my, there's even some pale patches in the center. I think this is like a kaleidoscope of color. And when it was in the pot, it almost, whoops. And when it was in the pot, it almost made me think of an impressionist painting. Oh yeah, that is some completely, well, okay, maybe there's a hint, the barest hint of yellow or brown in there. But we aren't going to need to wait for this water to clear because it is already clear. I think, and now I'm adding some clear dish soap to help rinse out anything that's left over in the fiber. But I think it might be worth in the future adding the dye to the pot slower, because I'm finding that I'm getting these really deep colors in certain sections, but not all over the fiber. And so when I injected the color, it sort of went to the bottom of the pot versus staying on the top this time. I know you can't really see because of the soap. But I think that these colors are absolutely extraordinary, and I cannot wait to see what this roving looks like once it is dried. So I am going to continue just carefully and slowly rinsing the fiber, minimizing agitation, and trying to make sure that I can rinse out any excess dye that is in here. But I am pretty satisfied with how clear the water is already. So next time you see me, we should be looking at our gorgeous dried roving. Here is our finished dried roving. And I have to say, calling this an impressionist painting is sort of spot on. We've got these really dreamy mix of colors in short sections that make you feel like a little flick of a paintbrush. I think overall it almost invokes a field of flowers or violets or something, with the hues of blues, purples, greens, and even the teeniest hints of yellow that have come through. The roving is soft, fluffy, and very spinnable. And so I know that our sponsor, Marilyn New, will have a wonderful time playing with this fiber. Thank you so much for sponsoring this episode of Dyepot Weekly. I am still working on my low immersion techniques with roving. And this time I injected the dye with a syringe into the pot to try to help distribute the dye better. But I think that even though the syringe was full of, a relatively small volume of dye, between 10 and 30 milliliters, I think that it would be worth adding the dye in even slower bits, and to inject the dye, some to the bottom, but then to come up and add some of the dye on the surface if you wanted to keep the deep colors all the way through the yarn. So I know that in this roving that we have some really deep colors and some pastels. And those, depending on how it's spun, those will even out into be a more medium tone. So if you wanted to have more saturated colors over all the roving, and you're doing low immersion, I think that you want to make sure to try to distribute the dye a little more evenly between the surface and the bottom of the pot. I think that, I mixed a lot of colors for this experiment because I wanted to play around with creating my own colors from the acid dyes. And so you could also stick with fewer colors to allow you to add a bigger volume of a color to a section. But I really am digging this impressionistic feel of this roving, and I really, really wish that I could spin it myself. This roving really does feel like a work of art. I love the way it feels like the colors mixed into all these different hues. And, well, they technically did mix into the hues. We just did it ourselves out of the pot. But they did definitely mix some while in the pot as well. I cannot wait to explore more ways to use these Jacquard acid dyes. This was my first time using the commercial acid dyes on roving, and I think that the results are absolutely phenomenal. And I cannot wait to do this again. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel so you can get notifications whenever I release a new video. Thank you so much for watching.